Heyo everyone, MimiVix here with a small guide for the Unmaking Normal, the trial introduced in patch 7.5 of Dawn Trail's main scenario questline introducing Enuo, Final Fantasy V Advanced Super Boss, as the villain. My hope is that this guide can help reduce or remove the anxiety behind the conflict while also granting a better understanding of the mechanics. Now with that said, let's jump into it. At the start of the fight, Enuo will cast Meteor Rain, a heavy-hitting raid-wide, so be ready with those shields, heals, and mitigations. He will follow this with Not Grows, tethering himself to the void fissure in the room, creating an AoE that will erupt from the fissure. Not Wakes will cause the fissure to change its position before another Not Grows cast goes off. Gaze of the Void will spawn orbs around the boss in sequence, and they will unleash a cone AoE, so you will chase after the attack, or you can time moving through the boss to the clear space. The boss will then use Deep Freeze, targeting both tanks with flare markers, so tanks move away from the group. Be careful to not fall off of the platform when positioning. Enuo will then return to the middle of the room and use Not Hunts, which will spawn two AoEs that will tether to players. Position yourself along the outer edge of the platform and try not to run at each other with the AoEs as they chase you. As this is happening, Enuo will cast Not Hunts Another, which will target a different player at random to take the tether. There are several ways to do the baton pass, but I find more consistency with running with the original target so they can reposition to the middle of the room and get out of the way. As Hunt resolves, the boss will target a player with Shrouded Holy, so stack and mitigate as needed, keeping in mind any possible vuln stacks from getting clipped during the hunt. Enuo will then use Meltdown, which will spawn AoE puddles beneath all players, and then target each player with another AoE shortly after, so spread out and try not to clip anybody while moving. The boss will then use Vacuum, which will spawn an AoE pattern on the floor that will also spawn circular AoEs at the ends of their lines that will explode. I try to line up beside a longer line to make sliding toward the center of the room easier. Another Meteor Rain, so be ready with those mitigations and heals. Once Enuo's health gets below 70%, he will then move to the north of the platform and cast All for Naught. While this action does not directly harm the party, the arena will change and pull everyone into a DPS check and add phase. During this phase, the party will be afflicted with the Unbecoming status effect, which is a dot that will need to be healed through. Move away from the proximity mark at the center of the room, and a series of adds will spawn. The smaller adds will fire off line AoEs around the room as players cycle through, trying to take them out as quickly as possible. Some of these adds are just obstacles and cannot be targeted, so just make sure that you are handling those that can be targeted and you'll be fine. During this phase, the main tank will be tethered to the large add at the center of the void and will be taking additional damage over time on top of the auto attacks and the Unbecoming dot, so tanks will need to manage their cooldowns and healers keep them in your sight as this attack hits really hard. Once the adds that can be targeted have been dealt with, a beam of light will spawn in the void, leading you towards the beacon in the dark target, which you will need to destroy before Power of the Void finishes filling up. While in the light, players will lose the Unbecoming debuff, gaining light vision, granting a movement speed increase. Once the beacon is broken, a cutscene will play. Once back in control, the boss will use Lightless World, a heavy-hitting raid-wide, so shield and heal through, and you will be sent back to the original arena. Enuo will use Not Grows, and this time he will direct the attack to be point blank, so move away from the boss until the AoE goes off. He will then use Almagest, a heavy hitting raid wide, so be ready with those heals. At this time, the boss will also open another void fissure to keep track of. Another Not Grows cast, but this time there are 2 fissures in play, so keep track of their positioning and direction of the tethers and move to the safe zones accordingly. Not Wakes will shift the fissures' positions for another Not Grows cast, so try to stay on your toes. Shortly after, NOL will use Dimension 0, which is a multi-hit line stack, so line up, shield, and heal. The boss will use Almagest again, so be sure everyone is topped off so they don't die to the excess damage output. This will be followed by another Not Hunt, so tethered players be ready to move so you don't clip the party. Not Hunt's Another will follow this, so keep in mind that you can fall off the platform and his attack does not discriminate player roles. Main tanks can be targeted with this. Another Not Grows cast, so be mindful of those fissures and move to the safe zones. NOL will use Not Wakes, but this time he will spam some moves, starting with Vacuum, so position yourself to avoid the attack. As this is happening, he will use Gaze of the Void, so you'll have to move quickly to reposition and Mario Kart around the boss to avoid the attack. There will be a pause in his actions before he casts Meltdown, so be ready to move away from the dropped AoE puddles and spread out so you don't clip anyone. The boss will then use Not Grows, so move to the safe area, after which he will cast another Meteo Rain, so be ready with those mitigations, shields, and heals. Going forward, NOL will use his mechanics in quick succession, with Vacuum, into Meltdown, into Gaze of the Void, and Deep Freeze, so players will need to be quick on their feet. Healers, be ready to quickly top off players that get clipped, as it's a real possibility amidst the chaos. Otherwise, the boss will repeat the mechanics you have already seen, just at a quicker rate than at the start. As with most content, as gear improves, the fewer loops and mechanics players will see. That said, I certainly hope that this helps tone down some of the chaos in this encounter, even just a little bit. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video.